Hi, I'm Jess Dewell, the host of The Voice of Bold Business Radio. And today we're going to be talking with Suzanne Hobbs, who is Communications Director and champion for the safe haven laws across the United States. And this is important on several levels. The first level is personal. Life is messy and out of control. The chaos that we feel we may not be able to grasp and deal with, let alone show up for the obligations like work or making sure the groceries are purchased or making sure that we have gas in the car, whatever the case may be. The thing is, on the other level, thinking at the business level, holding that space of business. We have employees who are going through things that they don't tell us that might be stressing them out. We may see results of that. However, we may not ever know what's going on. Even when we ask, we may not be told. And so what we can do to be not only sustainable in terms of growth for our contributions externally to our customers and clients, it's also internally. How can we help sustain and develop our people? And within that, knowing about programs like the safe haven laws across the US can help out. Maybe it'll never affect somebody that works for you directly. Maybe it will. Maybe it will ripple out and they will know somebody. So the thing is awareness and access when people want it, to get the information they need, to recognize when we feel like we're at rock bottom, when we feel like we're pressed into a corner and all we have is the worst and the worst of the worst options available to us, to recognize we don't. That most likely, like with the safe haven laws, there is a network that can catch us and that can help us through this. And so this network that we have as a society is really important. And what I hear Suzanne talking about is very much, hey, this network is here. And the only way that you can be caught by it and supported by it, or shared with somebody who can be caught and supported by it, is to know about it. So let me introduce you to Suzanne Hobbs, and you will meet her in just a moment. Suzanne Hobbs has had many job titles in her life, from best-selling children's author to news anchor to small business owner. Her best title is mom. 14 years ago, she adopted a baby who was abandoned at birth. And it was an incredibly touching story that has been told on Oprah Winfrey, in 2 books, countless magazine articles, and radio shows like ours. Suzanne has become an advocate for the safe surrender of newborn babies whose mothers feel they can no longer care for them. She's on a mission to save lives and bring awareness. We will be right back.
Welcome to the Voice of Bold Business, the show that provides everything smart leaders need to evaluate situations, build relationships, and create solutions. Jessica Dewell candidly talks about the skills necessary to build tenacity and do more with less. And now, here's Jessica.
Suzanne, we are so excited to have you with us today to share some really necessary information and the stuff that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And the reason people don't like to talk about it is because the more I learn about this, the more I realize as a society, we not only just give it to ourselves, but we freely give shame and blame to others for choices in their lives or decisions that people make. And that's a really hard thing for me to look at myself and go, oh yeah, I guess I was judgmental there. Shoot, now how do I change? How prevalent is this shame and blame within our society, just even amongst friends?
Oh, it's so true. I think so many times when people don't like who they are, they will pass those negative feelings on to other people, and they will try to find a lot of fault in someone else to make them feel better, right? But when you're talking about moms and young women who are leaving their babies, with the National Safe Haven Alliance, we say no shame, no blame, no name. We don't want these women to feel like they are going to be shamed for what they're doing in handing off their baby to a safe place. And we don't want their name. We're not going to blame them and make them feel bad. They're actually making a very smart decision. They're saving that baby's life, and they're also able to then turn around and walk away and move on with their life if they don't choose to keep that child.
And this is really the crux of our conversation. Pregnancy, unwanted pregnancies, it's whether financially career-wise, whatever our personal goals are, when it doesn't fit or it doesn't work or we're not ready, it's something that faces every single one of us. And until we walk in another person's shoes, we really don't understand what somebody is going through. And so it's amazing that part of this safe haven program and the laws that exist allow that. They actually set up this place of safety, no shame, no blame. And it's even more, I didn't know that you could totally remain anonymous also. And so if I'm sitting around with my girlfriends and I really want to right, New Year's is coming up. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be having these conversations. We're going to be reflecting. And then, of course, any time of the year when we're actually having those harder conversations that we don't have all the time, we get below the surface. How do you suggest, as we're learning about this, how could we bring it up in conversation with our girlfriends and our friends of our families?
And that's exactly whenever I'm on radio shows or TV shows, I always say this thing. I say, when you are talking with your girlfriends and you're having those moments that you just talked about, or you're sitting around with your family at a big dinner, this is a great conversation piece. And the many stories that we have about these babies, many of them are sad stories, many of them are great, beautiful stories. Bring up a story, one of the stories that has touched you, and just mention this law and just say, you know what, do you guys even know about the safe haven law? It's in our state. Wherever you're living, the safe haven law is in all 50 states. So it can, and hospitals in all of the 50 states are at least a safe haven location. They vary state to state as other places like fire stations or police stations or, medical offices, but hospitals everywhere. And you can just bring up the conversation and say, no, we don't know who might be hiding a pregnancy, or we don't know who may be not sure if they have their baby. So I just want to make sure that, do you guys even know about this law? It has saved so many babies. And I don't know why in America babies are being put in dumpsters. It doesn't need to happen. What a great conversation, at Thanksgiving or just on a Sunday dinner or family night, right? Or when you're sitting around with your girlfriends and you're having those great conversations. I just ask everyone, just bring up the fact that there is this law. And sadly, in the United States, babies are still being put in dumpsters. And it doesn't need to happen ever in this country. It should not happen anymore because of this law. You will not go to prison. You're not prosecuted if you hand the baby off and you can walk away. And yes, if you can give medical information, or if you want to give your name, obviously you just had a baby. So you may need some medical attention. And so they will help you get medical attention, but they're not going to throw handcuffs on you if that baby is unharmed and is fine. And you just say, usually you have a few days, 3 to 7 to 30 days, some states at 60. So it varies on when you can surrender that baby. So you need to check our website and learn about the law in your state. But hand that baby off, and if the baby is unharmed, just go and have your beautiful life and know that you did the right thing, and you're not going to be thrown in jail or prison for doing anything wrong because you've done nothing wrong under the safe haven law.
And the opposite, though, is very true. When a woman who decides to give up a newborn by putting that baby in a dumpster, that breaks the law. That endangers people. After you have abandoned a baby in a dumpster, what happens to you?
Okay, so I have some different stories that when I do public speaking or when I talk about it, I have different stories to talk about. So they vary, but if the baby dies, then the prosecutor in that area would obviously probably file charges for murder. Or if the baby is alive and found in a dumpster or on the side of the road or wherever, it would be abandonment, attempted murder, a variety of things. So like this baby, this little baby, and we're going to show this picture. This is a baby in the Atlanta, Georgia area. They call this baby the miracle baby. It was born premature, found in September 2017, left in a gym bag outside a medical facility for about 17 hours. And the cleaning staff found the bag outside, brought it inside, put it on someone's desk. The baby wasn't making any sounds. And so then finally someone else opened up the bag to look inside and be like, who is this? And they found a baby, a nearly 5-pound baby. So yes, when they find whoever did this, they would then face some criminal charges of abandonment. But thank goodness someone found that baby, even though it was many hours later. The baby will then be placed into a home for adoption. There are many, obviously, loving families looking to adopt children, like I did. I adopted a safe haven baby. But this baby is a miracle because he's alive, but the baby was left at a medical center outside. That's what's illegal. You can't just leave a baby outside to be not found. The laws ask that you hand that baby off. And we do have some work to do with the National Safe Haven Alliance to teach people that you can trust to hand off that baby and walk away. But again, if you can give medical information or the date of the baby's birth, how many days old, any type of information. I want to tell one more, I have many stories that we can tell, but this one touches me a lot, this story. And it's just such a sad story to see a little casket like this of a little baby. But this one happened in my home state of Idaho a few years ago. And this baby is called Baby Rose. And law enforcement became very attached to this baby, but it was New Year's Eve about 2 years ago. And the baby was found in a diaper bag on the side of the road. A police officer was driving around and it was snowy outside, and he saw this diaper bag, and they believed that the person had attempted to throw the baby kind of over a bridge, but the baby was found dead in this diaper bag, and they had a very nice funeral for Baby Rose. And they're still trying to find this the mother, but that mother would be facing charges. But that baby did not need to die. That baby would be a few years old now and probably having a beautiful, amazing life with an adopted family. Mm-hmm. And my daughter is a safe haven baby also from the state of Idaho. She's 14 now. And I can't even imagine. I'm so thankful to her birth mom for knowing about the safe haven law. But this, I can't say it enough, this doesn't have to happen. And so we all have to have that conversation and help share this information on our Facebook pages and on our Instagram and Twitter, and just telling people, because the statistics show it's not 16, 17, 18-year-old girls generally that are doing this. It is women in their 20s and 30s who maybe have a second or third child and cannot afford that child, or they're going to college, or they have a career and they just can't handle an additional child. That is often the case of these mothers that we know about.
It's not as much teenage girls. It is young women who are now out on their own in some capacity that are trying to make their way and end up pregnant and freak out and don't know what to do. And I'm using the term freak out because to just abandon a baby or think that that is the last resort and the only option, there is nothing but freak out there. Being able to educate, to know about this, that all 50 states have a safe haven law, that we can show up. We as an individual girl who just had a baby, a young woman, and maybe even a middle-aged woman, whatever the circumstances, the key being to walk in and hand off that baby. Now, my question is to you then, that takes a lot of courage. So first step is awareness, which is, hey, we've got this law. Did you know this is something that is available to every single mother of a newborn baby, provided this is the option they think is best for them? And then it takes a little bit of courage. So how do we have a conversation around courage to be able to go, well, I can't tell my mom. I can't tell my friends. I got to just kind of keep this secret for whatever reason, right? There's external pressures that make people feel that way in one sense. So if we're already feeling like we must be secretive, and by the way, for everybody listening, this applies to other parts of our business and our lives too. We all feel like we've got to keep secrets sometimes, and sometimes we have to have the courage to speak up. So what we're going to talk about next applies to everybody, and it's just a good skill also to add to this conversation and recognize it has other uses, which is, so how do you suggest or approach this concept of finding a voice, having courage to be able to face something that feels like the worst thing we would ever have to do?
I talk about, it's called the power of one. And when I talk about my story, my example of when I covered the story of a baby found in a dumpster, and it was a very impactful moment for me, standing there thinking, seeing the body of a baby pulled out of a dumpster, I would have taken that baby. Because at the time I was not able to get pregnant. My husband and I wanted children. And that was my moment. And everyone in their lives has more than just one moment where that is your moment to act, whether to say something or to do something. And that was one of the big moments in my life. And so when that moment comes, I just teach people, that is why whatever it is happened to you at that moment. And you have to get uncomfortable, right? My favorite quote, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And we are more powerful than we really truly believe. And we have to just be able to say, this feels wrong. or this feels right, or this is something, like, I just was like, I don't want to see a baby ever pulled out of a dumpster again. And I would have taken that baby. That was a teenage girl who hid her pregnancy from her dad and her brother, the story that I covered in about the year 2000. And then a few years later, because I helped get the law passed in Idaho, that was my moment. Because I said, Idaho doesn't have this safe haven law, and it's in 20, 30 other states at the time, and now it's in all 50 states. But I was the one that really advocated to get the law in Idaho. The governor handed me the pen, so that was my moment. And had I already had several children, I probably would have covered that as I was a news reporter, right? I kind of going backwards, but I was a news reporter, got a tip that a baby was found dead in a dumpster. So my cameraman and I rushed over to the scene. They're putting up the crime scene tape, and the guy from the funeral home was taking the baby out. And I'm just like, what is this, right? But had I already had children, that would have been probably any other news story. It still would have touched me, and I probably still would have cried when I went home later that day, because some stories make you cry, right, when you do that. But I didn't have children, so it really, I believe that I am meant to be a big part of the Safe Haven Alliance and doing all that I'm doing, because I could not have children, and so my passion. So everyone in their life has many moments like this where you have to be strong enough and get uncomfortable that if you see something, you see it all around airports. If you see something, say something, right? So this is something that I hope other people feel passionate about, because these are lives, these are children, and these are women who are, freaking out, terrified, scared, don't know what to do. But their option should never be to throw the baby away. That is never a place for a baby in any situation. There are people that will take the baby, and you will not be prosecuted if the baby's not hurt.
So we've got the Safe Haven laws in all 50 states, and we have the Safe Haven Alliance that you are an active spokeswoman for, and have been for a long time now. 18, 20 years, something like that, which is amazing. Tell us what its purpose is and how we might get involved on a local level to just even learn a little bit more to be able to talk about it. Also, if people are listening and they're like, yes, I want to be a part of this, that they can learn more to participate and volunteer.
Okay, great. So yes, the National Safe Haven Alliance, I've been a part of it since Lily was born, so about 14 years. As soon as I learned about the law, I just said, this is what I feel passionate about. And we do have a crisis hotline. It's just 1-888-510-BABY. And that's the number that people can call either for information, to volunteer, if they have a baby that they need to surrender. We've actually had some of our staff, they are trained, medically trained and they've delivered babies over the phone through this hotline, and then called ambulances or, helped get them the medical help that they need. But we're always looking for volunteers in every state, absolutely, because this is something that is so simple to explain, but also just we need help and ideas and help. Eventually we're working right now, I can't say who, but we have a new spokesperson coming along, a well-known, I can at least say she's a supermodel or a former supermodel, a very well-known person who is going to be doing our public service announcements. And so I'm the communications director for this organization. So we have a lot of really cool things happening with that. But social media is huge, where we just need you to talk about it. Post stories and things about it. What was the rest of your question too?
That's good. That's perfect. And by the way, everybody, you can either rewind and listen to the phone number again, or just make sure and check the program notes page. Everything, some statistics, other information will all be on our program notes page for this. The other question I had changes the look. We've looked at babies a little bit. We've looked at moms a little bit. Now let's look at dads. What's a dad's role in this decision? Can they surrender a baby? Where do they fit in, and how does this support and help them?
Okay, so if you go to our website, the National Safe Haven Alliance.org, there is a map on the main page that you can click on your state. And it is important because this is not a federal law, this is a state-by-state law. So if you click on, I know I'm very familiar with the Idaho law and the South Carolina law, but if you click on the Idaho law, you can then read the actual, click on the state of Idaho, read the law. There's a PDF attached to it, and we've updated all the laws because some states change them as needed. But for dads, depending on the state and the law, but yes, the dads have rights. It is oftentimes those women do not tell those partners that they were pregnant. That's very true. Sometimes they do. But in a case that I'm familiar with, they post in the newspaper a baby was born around this date, and that they legally have to have some time frame and do that legal notice in the newspaper. I don't know how many people really read the legal notices, but that by law, what they had to do to notify someone of a baby being born, and that they had a certain number of weeks or months to come and make that claim. So I do believe that there are not many men who know about those abandonments or even the surrenders. So, but again, what the law is state by state. But if someone hands off a baby to a fire station and turns around and walks away, and they don't give their name, which in many states you don't have to, then yeah, how would you find the father to see if he would want that child? So,
okay. Okay. So that's part of it. That's the rights piece. That's true. Provided a state allows anonymity, then it's unlikely the father could potentially be contacted. Okay. Do you have couples that have decided together that this is the right thing to do for their situation?
I am sure of that. A lot of the information that we get, like there are babies that are surrendered, but you don't always, the man is not always there at the surrender. I'm sure there has been. But when those babies are surrendered at hospitals and at safe haven locations, it's a beautiful thing. But oftentimes the stories that we hear is that it is just a woman walking in and handing off the baby. In the law, that depending on the state, the surrender can come from a responsible adult. So if you read the law for your state, it will tell you where those safe haven locations are and who can hand off the baby. Because a birth mom could say, I can't do it, and give the baby to a friend and say, you go take the baby. And that person could then say, this is not my child, but by law, I'm allowed to hand this baby off to you guys, right? And it's so important that you know the law for your state, because it depends on how many days, right? I would love it to be the same number of days in every state. But those state lawmakers made those decisions based on what they think is best for their state. But I think 30 days is ideal. But some states it's only 3 to 7 days.
Okay.
So that's important, because if you go beyond that, there could be some concerns if you're trying to surrender the baby beyond that.
Yeah. All right. So the first step is basically not only awareness that this is an option that exists. This is something that we have to know for the state that we live in. And Colorado, where I'm at, will be different than Idaho, where you are, and will be different than South Carolina, which is another state you're familiar with, versus, Scott's out in Washington, for example. So we've got people all over, and our listeners too. So that's first one, we've got a way. We've got a way, no shame, no blame. And this is something that I wish that more programs, both internally and externally in families and businesses, we considered. What does it actually mean to have no judgment? And what does it actually mean to have no shame? And in fact, the first, I think, is almost impossible, to have no judgment. However, we could temper that with the fact that we're looking at it from how we feel about it, not the fact that it's actually happening to us. So, okay, this shame piece though, that really bugs me. And it really bugs me because it exists everywhere. Women do it to each other. It happens within businesses. It's opposite in men. It's not shame. That concept of one-upsman. I'm always better than you. So there's the same concept of this potential shaming, even though it's not called that or felt necessarily that way. Same outcome. I'm better than you. I know more. I am this and you are that. I am whatever.
That's a sad way to live. Isn't that just a sad way to live, to think that? And a lot of times people don't know they are that way. I don't think they realize that they are that way.
It's an unconscious bias. And that's actually something that has been on my radar a lot lately, Suzanne, is this concept of unconscious bias. And how do we find it? I know I find it when I hear about things in my family. I've got my family of 3 here in Colorado. And then you look at my sisters, the family that I grew up with, and my mom and my dad, and then all of my aunts and uncles and their kids. And then you're looking at that extended family. And every once in a while I catch myself and I go, shoot, whose standard am I holding them up to? Not theirs, not theirs. And that's something too. How do you set a standard, or how do you talk with your daughter about recognizing what shame is and standing up for ourselves in those moments?
And for my daughter, she has some learning disabilities. She is 14 and a half, but she looks like she's 9 physically. She is very tiny. She was born premature. They didn't find any drugs in her system, but her birth mom did admit to doing some meth until she found out she was pregnant. So, and the birth mother smoked throughout the pregnancy. So Lily was born about 6 weeks early. She was very tiny, but they let me take this little bundle home. It was pretty awesome. I talked to her because she's been in some special ed classes, and she's now in a private school where there are many children that have had a lot of struggles in public school. And she recognizes that some kids can be very mean. And she's even had some, bullying and people being very rude to her because she's in some special ed classes. But now at this other school, I think many of those kids understand what it was like in public school. Not to bash on public school, but, there's a lot of kids. And it's hard to manage all those kids. But she is very aware now of, at this new school, to just love people. And it's a much smaller school. And so she understands that people are different and have different disabilities and different abilities. And so she's thriving at this new school because, we've had some really good conversations about how she's been treated and how she treats other people. And I say, we never make fun of people for how they look, anything, because we all are different and we are all special and we all want to be treated well, so I think it's pretty rough for kids these days in a lot of ways because it's just rough. People don't seem to have a filter. And I think a lot of the love and the care and concern for other people is just not there anymore. Not.
Or it's so conditional because I have certain expectations of you, next generation. And so that's, and by the way, that happens in business too. Instead of just showing up, seeing where the people who work for us are at and helping them develop one skill, make one change in the way that they work, we're all about setting out an ultimatum or making the goal line very clear and showing how far away it is actually, instead of being there, standing, walking with, running with, achieving those things together. And I think that comes back to our support work. If the better our network, the less shame I think we will feel because the more love we have to give first.
Another point I want to make too is just I have chosen to end relationships with people, even in my family, because of the negativity that they bring to life, right? And what's the little quote, your vibe, your tribe impacts your vibe, right? Have you seen that? But really, it is okay to say no to people and to say, I don't need you in my life because you are draining and negative and just not the type of person and life is just too stressful enough to have yucky people in your life. And so if you're listening to this and there are those people, I don't feel the guilt by just saying to people, even in my family, you know what? I think that we need to not have a relationship. I love you, but I cannot talk to you and we are done, and it has been actually a real blessing and a real relief to just not have that strain and drain. It's okay because we matter and our happiness in our home matters. So you have to look at some of the relationships you have and think, is this relationship really helping or hurting me?
Is handing over a baby, a newborn, to a safe haven location, do you have the same rights as you would through a straight adoption?
No.
Okay.
No, it's very different. I mean, it really is so, we have had just over 3,500 babies saved by this law. The Safe Haven law has been around since 1999, started in New York State by a EMS worker who had, within just a matter of days, covered babies found in dumpsters. And he just said, we got to do something. So it started in New York, also in Texas, right around the same time. But where was I going? I just totally forgot where I was going with this.
Oh, the difference between... Yeah.
Okay. So, but 3,500 babies saved in this way, just by someone, again, walking into a safe haven location. Usually it's a firehouse because people love firemen and trust them, and firefighters and firewomen, and hospitals, right? So that's how many babies so far in these years have been saved. It's very different because once you hand that child off to a responsible adult inside that location, you go out the door. right? And if there's a normal adoption process, you oftentimes meet the adopting family and there's paperwork that is signed and people go to court and all of that. What happens here is that baby is taken. So if you take your baby to a fire station, hand the baby off, you can say the baby was born yesterday, there's really no medical history, I'm a very healthy person, blah, 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 whatever, right? And then you go on with your life and live a beautiful life knowing that you did a right thing and knowing that that baby will be adopted by a loving family. So then the fireman, what he does is after the mom's gone, he contacts the state, like the Health and Welfare or Children's Family Services. Often they also contact law enforcement because the police get involved in this case, but the police do not connect with the mom. They don't follow her down the road. And then the baby is then placed into the state kind of health and welfare system. And that's what happened when we adopted Lily, is Lily was actually born at a hospital and the birth mother then walked out. She wrote a note on a hospital pamphlet and she knew about the law and she says, please give this baby to the safe haven people. And she walked out the hospital door. She said she was going outside for a smoke the day after the baby was born. And she walked out the door and never came back. So what happened in my case was law enforcement was contacted, the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare was contacted, and they then chose us to be the adoptive parents of this little baby girl. And so we were called, and when we had filled out the adoption paperwork, we were willing to take a child up to the age of 5. And so then the adoption proceedings began. Like, we got the baby, took her home, and then adopted her about a year later. So, but they did have to do all those notices for the birth father and just make sure that everything was done correctly. But then we were able to adopt her right before she turned 1.
When safe haven becomes involved, there is a severing of rights because it is a surrender.
Yes. It's not talked about a lot, but if the birth mother had changed her mind, and it does vary again state by state, but in Idaho, she had a certain number of days to change her mind. But with that law, she then would have been charged with abandonment. So oftentimes we say, if you hand off your baby, it's a good thing to go. But there are programs through the Safe Haven Alliance and in some of the states to help these birth moms reconnect with those children, because we want them to be with sometimes these birth moms are just scared because they don't think financially they can do it or whatever. And so there are resources and help that, are you sure you want to give up your baby? Because we can help you. We can help you find resources to make sure that you can do this. We want those babies with their birth mothers. Obviously, that's ideal. But if the birth mother does have drug issues or is in an abusive relationship or just can't do it, then absolutely we take that child and the baby will be placed for adoption in a loving home. But they have helped mothers be with their children and keep their children because that's their baby.
Okay.
So that's something that's not often talked about either. But yeah, we want them to be connected with their children if they want to be.
Perfect. And then the other side of that is people who are looking to adopt. What it sounded like, these are people who are also going through the process in their own state, according to their own state laws, to become foster parents first. Is that so Safe Haven hooks into the wellness and the foster care system, or does it also work with private adoption agencies? Where's some of that line? If people are like,
all connected to the state. Yeah, they're all in there. The state is the one that gets involved. But I don't know about if the private adoption agencies get involved with the state. It's very possible, but that's kind of a level that I'm not real sure about. But they definitely want to find the right family for those children. But we are not an adoption agency. Mainly what we are is we support states' rights and states' efforts to just make sure that these babies are not abandoned. And then
so I don't want to say outreach. You're the outreach awareness program that allows babies to be surrendered, newborns to be surrendered.
Educate on the laws. Yes.
And then the state infrastructure takes over. And so then in your story, the state infrastructure took over and they placed Lily with you as a foster parent?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Until all of those parental rights were squashed, right, at some point. And then we were able to be her foster parents for a while and then adopt her. And many adoptions might take, go faster than ours did. Ours took about a year. So, but they needed to do the homesteading and all those great things. So
Right,
Yeah,
exactly. And that's the becoming a foster parent or to adopt. I know in Colorado, to adopt, you do go through the foster care, the class, and you have the big interview and you do all of those things. And then you become eligible to take in children. And then when those rights are severed, have the choice, I think. Or well, there's a whole lot of other steps in there, but that's like the one path
yeah,
through.
yeah,
Well, that's interesting. And so if people who are looking to adopt, if they've only started with private adoption agencies, to be aware that this may be a question to ask that agency, and or find the person within the health and wellness sector of the state infrastructure to find out what other options might be available. Now tell us again, how many babies have been saved by these laws?
Well, the numbers change practically weekly, but so the law's been around since 1999. So far, just over 3,500 babies have been saved by the law. 1,380 newborns have been illegally abandoned. Of those, nearly 800 have been found dead. So, 1,400 illegally abandoned. But that changes weekly. These numbers are always changing. But the laws in all 50 states, the District of Columbia, Puerto Rico, and it's also in many other countries. When I was a guest on the Oprah Winfrey Show, now about 10 years ago, I had other countries reach out to me asking for my help and advice on getting the law in their country. But that crisis hotline, people can call, go to our website, but 888-510-BABY. Go to the nationalsafehavenalliance.org and just learn about the law in your state. Read some great stories, and we're posting on there some success stories. We have a Facebook page. We'd love you to go follow it and like it and share any of those posts on your Facebook page. But it's so important, again, to just have that awareness because you don't know who's hiding that pregnancy and you don't know who is scared. So we just really rely on other people to just talk with everybody else they know about this law, because we save babies. But we should never have any more of these babies abandoned. Those numbers are not acceptable in the United States at all, or anywhere. It's just heartbreaking every time we hear about it, and it shouldn't happen.
And, this is one of those sticky situations that an employee is never going to tell an employer. I mean, if they can get around it, you never know what you're going to face with benefits and all kinds of other things and culture and all that good stuff. So knowing that it's a sticky situation, do you have like videos and some other things so that if an HR department somebody from HR is listening, or a business owner is listening and they're like, oh, we don't have to have a conversation about this. However, I do want to pass on this information. This is something that I can do to help my employees keep their integrity, have the courage to do what's right for them, and make sure that they are aware of the options available to them. Employers don't necessarily want to sit down and have conversations like this. We're not going to be talking about this over wine or at the, at the bowling nights or whatever they are, right?
No, but that's a great idea. Like because I own some small businesses too. It's a great idea because employees get the booklet that talks about company policies and things. It'd be great for every company to put, it's a paragraph. That's all it is. What we do education, some states put education, like, safe haven education in their school curriculum, but that's a massive job that we want to start doing for everywhere, is that every school, I want it to be mandatory curriculum, junior high and high school, but junior high too. They need to do, and it is a 5-10 minute part of the curriculum. You could spend an hour on it, but it is something very brief, but it needs to be taught to every student in the school. Mm-hmm. So we have a big job to do. We really have a lot to do. We want billboards all over the country, talking about the safe haven law. We want them in every bathroom. Can you imagine some of the big chains, having that in the Walmart bathroom, Target bathroom? So we have, many of us have just been put on the board of directors and on the board for the National Safe Haven Alliance. So we have a new executive director, Heather Berner, who was over the Arizona program. So just in the last probably 6 months, most of us are really starting to gear up and we're going to do some really big things, but we're absolutely looking for people who have great connections to help us make the moves that we want to do.
And here's the thing, not only are we helping our friends who might have friends who are going through this or might have friends that are going through this. Not only are we employers that have employees that may be facing this or know somebody that may be facing this, we get to help spread the word in our own way. The other piece of that is we're allowing the next generation to be as fully present as possible. And that, I think, is really an important thing, because we make so many strides from each generation and the thoughts that they have and the way that they look at the world that's different. And we need every single one of those 3,500 babies that has been saved over, since 1999 to be able to contribute and share what they are here to do as well.
Yeah, very true. They are going to make important things happen in the world, and every life matters. Absolutely. I also want to talk about my children's book too.
That's where I was going next. That's perfect. Yes.
Because it actually flows in with you talking about the next generation. So I came out with a children's book a year ago. It actually became an Amazon #1 hot new release in 3 categories, which is awesome. But for my daughter, Lily, she's very creative, and so am I. And so I came up with a bedtime story one night, and it was practically word for word this story, and it's called The Hungry Snake. And she would always say, "Mom, tell me the story of the hungry snake." And so, bucket list, being bold, just saying, it's been nagging at me that I need to get this story into a book. And so I kind of put it together, and I found an illustrator and a publishing company to help me publish it. But it's just a little story about a snake that's hungry and doesn't know what to eat, so he goes and tries other animals' food. And I'm not going to tell you what happens in the end, but always the kids go, "Oh!" I mean, it's a shocking, surprising end. And then they laugh and they say, "Read it again," every time. So, but the proceeds from the sale of The Hungry Snake, you can get it on Amazon, or you can go to my website, thehungrysnake.com. That's a clever website, right? Or go to SuzanneHobbs.com. But if you go to thehungrysnake.com, you can buy a copy of the book, and the proceeds that the author would normally get goes to help me promote the Safe Haven Law. So that's what I'm doing. So when I do my traveling and speaking and anything that I do to help promote the Safe Haven Law, and it's a good time. You can buy it. It's okay to buy it after the holidays, right? So, but I'm very proud of this book and that it has sold so well. But another thing that I use in this book as a tool to talk about the Safe Haven Law is the page in the About the Author, and it even has the website for the National Safe Haven Alliance.org, and talks about the Safe Haven Law in the book. So whatever I can do to help save these babies and help save these moms, this is my mission. And as Oprah Winfrey said, she's like, "This is your mission." And I said, "Yes, it is. It absolutely is." And I'm very proud to be a part of this important mission, because I'm a mom because of the Safe Haven Law. And I can now call myself a mom. Mother's Days used to be horrible days for me, because I wasn't a mom, and I was married, and for 7 years, no children, and we couldn't have children. But because of the Safe Haven Law and me seeing a very sad story of a baby pulled out of a dumpster, that was that moment that I said, I can do something about this. I know a state senator, I'm going to get the law in Idaho. So everybody has those moments, and you just have to remember, whether it's in your home that you make a difference, which you can, in your neighborhood, right, in your community, in the world, in your country, and it ripples. So whatever you do it right, and be bold and strong and brave, and do the right thing, and you'll feel better about it, right? Haven't we all done things that we kind of go, "Oh, that was dumb," or regrets that we wish we would have stood up or said something, right? We don't need to do that. If there's things that are nagging at you to do, like write that book, do it. Or to talk to that person, to forgive them, call them, right? We shouldn't have those happening in our lives where we feel things haven't been done. So write down your list and go get them and do them. And for me, it was writing this book, doing more speaking about the Safe Haven Law, and just promoting the National Safe Haven Alliance. And I'm so glad that they asked me to be a part of it.
Thank you for listening to today's show, Program 113, Intertwined Journeys. Take the time to leave us a comment, to rate the program, and to subscribe on your preferred listening platform. We air shows on Tuesdays and Fridays, and we can have them delivered directly to your listening queue. Suzanne Hobbs is amazing. I have to tell you, not only the stats from the babies saved, the lives of the babies and the families that are able to adopt those babies, and understanding our rights, our opportunities, and the fact that we can do things for ourselves and others without shame in a place of safety, especially when it comes to supporting and giving life to the babies that arrive in this world today. So it's a tough subject, and it takes courage to bring up a subject like this. Yet imagine the people who may not know about this, that by having somebody who's willing to talk about it, that brings an awareness and spreads the word, can be helped by a program like Safe Haven. You can find the program notes for Intertwined Journeys at voiceofboldbusiness.com/p113. That is voiceofboldbusiness.com/p for program 113. You can also search Intertwined Journeys and even Suzanne Hobbs. Your experiences and beliefs shape how you show up. Use the consciousness that we have and the awareness and the love that we have for other people, wanting the best for them, to come out in our conversations and share programs like what Safe Haven can offer men and women who find themselves with a newborn baby that they prefer to surrender because of their circumstance. This is a type of problem solving, and it is proactive problem solving. They've created the network. They've got the solution. It's up to us to spread the word so that people who have this problem can come forward and do what is best for them and do what feels right to them, safely, anonymously sometimes, and without shame or blame. Take a look at your own life and look and see, how are the journeys of the people you're connected to intertwined?
Subscribe at thevoiceofboldbusiness.com and get more information, program notes, and past episodes. Bold leaders approach each situation and focus on action to achieve a higher level of leadership. Jessica Dewell, your business advocate, is the host of the Voice of Bold Business Radio. Thank you for joining us.